Many instances of paranormal phenomena have been reported in this desolate place. Events that may reflect the area's tragic past. Whatever they are, whatever you call them, ghosts, spirits, shades, specters, apparitions, there is not a corner of the world they do not inhabit.
What's going on, guys? This is Ken James as with Jason McKittrick, and this is Other Dangers Podcast.
Hey guys, how we doing?
So tonight we're going to do a little bit of just talking, a nice little conversation about the paranormal, other dangers, and things of that nature to kind of get a clear idea of just who we are and what the paranormal means to us and where we stand with it. Jay, if you want to take it away.
Well, I just want to start, a little introduction between the two of us. Ken and I have been friends for nearly 20 years now. 20 years, yeah. Around that. Whenever we get together or ever talk to each other, we always come back to the same subject, and it's the paranormal. So it took 20 years, but we just recently realized that, hey, why don't we make a podcast about this, get together, talk about it, and, maybe come to some kind of deeper meeting or just, get together and talk about ghosts.
Yeah. Well, talking about ghosts, I mean, that's just something we do in our sleep, I bet. But, so for 20 years of friendship that we've had, we've always discussed this kind of stuff. And just to clarify what we mean by other dangers is there are things in this world that we'll never truly understand. No, there's you could get shot, you can get robbed, you can get any kind of way of being in danger, but there are other dangers out there that people have experienced, and those are the ones that we like to talk about.
It really is the type of stuff we like to talk about, whether it's sharing a new story with each other or just sending, videos back to each other. What do you think about this one that pops up on like Facebook? And it's usually like drone, I don't know, a bug in the screen. I don't know.
Yeah, that's totally an alligator. That's totally that's. Well, the one of the ones that we saw recently, that blimp.
The New Jersey blimp. Yeah.
Dude, it was like the Goodyear blimp over MetLife Stadium. And like, how do all these people not realize that, like, we're looking at a blimp? Do they never see the Goodyear blimp
because
before?
People are very intelligent. That's why.
And it's not even like a I want to believe situation, like, is kind of like a motto of people like us. But the just like you're looking at something and I don't know if it's much of as your heart wants to make it that,
right.
But that's where the critical mind has to kind of kick in and be like, okay, wait a second.
Yeah, sure. No, but yeah, so we, coming along here and, just trying to put a little thing together here to try to give you guys an intro to the two of us. So got some, couple little talking points we're going to hit and then just kind of take it from there. I think Ken had, mentioned earlier that we, both always come to this topic from like at least a critical point of view, and at the very least a hopeful point of view. So, I think that's all all any of us can do.
Well, like we were saying before too, we like to approach it as maybe,
Sure.
Is that it? Is that something? Maybe.
Yeah.
I would like to look into it a little more, maybe see it again or try to see something, but not just take everything at face value,
right.
Which is kind of harder to do when it's just someone's personal experience. And you've said it before that you're very open-minded. I try to be as open-minded as possible. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that kind of blind faith gets me into trouble with like, no, this has got to be it. But
so what would you say, would kind of like give you the creeps, like what's the thing that makes your blood, run cold?
Yeah. Just hearing like a blood curdling female, like a woman scream in distress, whether it's like a pre-recording or if I'm like in my living room, I hear it out in the street. Just, I don't know what it is about that just like, it's like, oh God, right. Or what was that? It punches me in my stomach and I get like nauseous from it.
Sure.
Because like sometimes you'll hear them and you're like, yo, this is like the most terrifying thing. Like, I don't even know if I'd run toward it. You know?
Well, that's what separates you from Batman.
Yeah, true. And justice.
Right. Well, I guess on the simple level like that, an abandoned building. Just seeing an abandoned building. I mean, I've always had an interest in, exploring that kind of stuff, and we can talk about that later. But and there's always a possibility to it. Why is it abandoned? What's in there? Is anything left behind? Whether it be a material thing or, something spooky. But just always, whenever you're driving, you say, oh, look at that place. It's abandoned. Why? And that's just something that always just gives me the creeps. Like, ugh, I remember what it's like in there at night. Ugh.
You drive past it, and like the moon's dancing off it.
Exactly.
And you're like, it piques your interest, but also you're like, gosh,
yeah,
what's going on in there?
Yeah, like middle of the day, you're like, would you sleep in there for $1 million? Absolutely. Then walking up there in the middle of the night,
yeah, you're like, I'm gonna do it. It's $1 million.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the difference between people say, if you're brave, it's like being scared and doing it anyway.
Right.
But it's the same kind of thing as like riding a roller coaster or just, doing karaoke, doing something that you're scared to, of any kind of fear you might have and just doing it. But that's kind of the thrill of this paranormal talk.
Sure.
It's the unknown.
And, I guess kind of in the same vein, investigating that kind of stuff and seeing that kind of stuff. What do you think would be a place that you would want to visit or investigate?
If I had to nail it down,
like
I gotta say, bucket list is definitely Dracula's Castle.
Which one?
Well, how many are there?
Honestly, there's only one real one, and it's a ruin.
That's the one.
it's a ruin on top of a castle, on top of a hill.
Okay, well that would be the one. But isn't there's the other one too? That's like the what is it called?
There's Hunadora Castle. There's Bran Castle, but neither of them were actually Dracula's castle.
Okay, so pit stop there, and then, but also Waverly Hills. Hills.
That's a good one. That'll definitely be an episode. I can tell you that.
Because I've been to a couple places. Like we'll get into it, but like that place, like in its entirety, like it's huge, and it's you can still go there. Like and if we could get keys, I would. Bucket list. But how about you? Where would you
the Paris catacombs.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been fascinated with that place since I was at least a teenager. And the more you look into it, the creepier it gets. What is there? Something like over 100 miles of tunnels under there because they're so meandering and they're so like wrapped up, and they go from like level to level. And I don't know if folks listening, if you know about the Paris catacombs, it was originally a mine. And then they, during the 1700s, the city of Paris ran out of room to bury their dead, so they started just shoving them down there, and not like buried, just like inarticulated skeletons, just put places, and they piled skulls and they made sculptures out of it. And there's walls of skulls and there's rooms of
that shit goes there.
Yeah.
that's what they said. They were like, we'll just put them there.
Here's the femur room, here's the here's the humerus room, here's the finger bone room, and here's the wall of skulls.
Yeah, they're like, they separate it by like, this was thieves. These were, coddlers peddling their wares. Like, by job description, they were just like, all right, but these ones will keep kind of towards the front. They had a little bit of money, but
no. And so one of the greatest things about that place is that you have like the accepted areas where if you take a tour there, you can go down there and check out what's there. But then there's like all of these like mapped areas, and then you have these guys called the cataphiles who go down there. They know the place better than the police and the like city officials. They go down there, they have all these other areas where they hang out. I mean, I think at one point in history, well, recent history, there's a movie theater down there, they have parties down there. But
that's so awesome,
dude. What was the ABC Family show with the
the scariest places on earth?
That episode like cemented it for me.
They showed that video of that guy.
Yeah.
Whether that's real or fake, that is some spooky shit.
That's the definition of nightmare fuel, because I remember seeing that the first time. I think it was at your house.
Probably.
We were watching it, and like, that dude's like way into it. He's like, this is the gate to hell.
But see, I'm claustrophobic though too, so that's something that would make like I just getting into it would be the big struggle for me.
Right.
Like the passing into a small hole to get to like a bigger,
Sure.
like I can do spelunking or anything like
Right.
that. But if they were like, here's a nice little gate you can get into the
Sure.
catacombs with, yeah, that would be my doorway. But
Right.
yeah, that is definitely a good answer.
Absolutely. So switching from that, I mean, what, you know, talking about these kind of things, hauntings and ghosts and all that kind of stuff. Is that something at its base level that scares you, haunting and ghosts, or is it the idea of haunting or something like that? What, you know,
I wanna kind of paint the picture of like, oh, it's the unknown, that like it's the fascinating, we're the scariest, but in reality, there's a heavy dose of nostalgia that kind of draws me to it, because like, you know, some of the best times I had were on like those overcast days, and like, you know, I'm just out like with a buddy or a couple friends, and like we're like, yo, let's go into the woods, or
Yeah.
or even just like the little things like sitting on the couch at my mom's house with the door open, you know, and the wind's coming through, you're getting that chill. There's decorations, and you got, you know, whatever movie you're watching, you know, Nightmare Before Christmas, but then, you know, all that's going on, and then someone, like probably my mother or someone, will be like, hey, did I ever tell you that time? And everyone immediately is like,
yeah, right,
you know,
right.
like, what time?
The energy just
What
comes
do you-
down in the room, and you're just like,
yeah,
what?
yeah. And when someone hits you with like a story you never heard
Right.
before, and you legit see that kind of like fear on their face.
I can absolutely relate, because I like to, whenever I meet somebody new, you know, once you start getting into them, and you could tell that they're like, okay, I can hang out with this person. Usually my next question is, hey, do you have any ghost stories? Do you have any paranormal? Like,
Yeah.
because it's interesting to me. It's not even just, you know, belief has nothing to do with it. It's just I want to hear those stories, because those are always interesting to me, because it tells me a lot about that person. And like, if you can entertain a paranormal or unexplained story in your life, then I you know, I find you more interesting as a person.
Yeah. Well, our styles are a little different, because like I have two ways of
lead
introducing the
with that.
paranormal to people. Yeah, like my one will usually be like, we'll just be talking. I'll be like, oh, and also, so there were these legs running around my house as a kid, and the people are like, what? And you know, and then I just ramble on, or I wait for like, it might even take a year for them to bring something up, and then I'm just like, you know, like, I can't believe you finally brought it up. You know, like. No, but yeah, I usually just like freak people out, and if they can, like, if they're like, no, I got some, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, all right, yeah, let's keep this
But
going.
what's great about that is like what you just described is that when you get that, and they're like, yeah, actually, when I was a kid, we used to go. It's like, oh yeah, and then like you lean in, and you start to like, oh yeah,
You rub your
Yeah,
hands together,
absolutely,
you know.
and you know, it's just to me that's magic, because that's like that essence of that magic of storytelling, because it's like, okay, there's credibility here. This is a person's experience. I love it. I don't care what is real or what isn't. I want to hear this story, and I always want to hear those stories.
It's funny, because it's like it's not like Ken. You're like, okay, this person wasn't just throwing this shit in my face, you know, like it came up organically. Whereas, you know, someone like me is just like, well, there's ghosts, then there's this happening, and
Right.
you know, and one thing too that I've noticed that's happened over the last, like, I'm gonna say like 10 years, more and more people are kind of willing to share these stories that a lot of times you would talk about it, and they're like, ah, horse shit,
Sure.
or like, ah, no.
Sure.
But now, like, people are kind of like, you know what, my dad would always tell me, like, stuff like that too. Like when someone's like, yo, so my uncle, you know, like that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that's
when
you know, I think that's kind of like a sign of the times, or whatever you want to call it, because now everyone can share their experience, you know, social media. Everyone can share their thing and just kind of throw it out there. You could be in a group that has just paranormal stories and not have to worry about ridicule or anything like that. And I think that's probably, you know, something that's been good for paranormal is social media. But at the same time, I think social media is also a bad thing for it, I guess, depending on what angle you look at it, because you can put a story or usually a picture or a video up there, and people will shoot you down immediately. They're like, dude, that's, come on, you know, case in point, that UFO.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also will point out people who are trying to, you know, pull the wool over our eyes or something.
Snake oil salesman.
But at the same time, then it encourages those people too. So it's you know.
Well, that's the other side of it. What I would say too, the other side, like the bad part there's a lot of times that people that just haven't done this for a long time or been into it for a long
Right.
time, they'll see something and almost like immediately believe it sometimes. And then you got to kind of step in as the asshole and be like, look, man,
Push
look
your
at the picture.
Push your glasses up.
Yeah, glasses.
Actually,
Yeah. Oh, sir. But I was just showing my one buddy that the New York Post just posted a video. I don't know if it was they just, but I just stumbled upon it. They're like, Gettysburg ghost walks across the street. 2 ghosts. So I pull it up and I look, and I'm like, oh, dude, that's a smudge on the windshield because look how it moves. It coincides with like the camera moving. You see the dash as the dashboard comes up, the image moves, and it's just movement of the car, a trick of the eyes. And my buddy was just like, fuck you. This was a quote. This was a good quote. He said, hanging out with you when we first started hanging out, I thought I was going to see a lot more ghost videos that are real.
Right.
He said, but most of what you've done is just been like debunked, like, ugh, get it out of here. And I don't want to do that.
But the hard reality is that there's maybe 1, 2, or 3 that are, possibly legit. I mean, it's, and it's funny that you mentioned Gettysburg, because that video that just posted, obviously bogus, but then I think my favorite video of all time is a Gettysburg video.
Absolutely. I saw that when I was like, dude, I was like 14 maybe, and it was like the only website I ever paid for a subscription because they showed a clip and I was like, I gotta see it.
No, well, anyone listening, this is a very famous ghost video, but it was taken at Gettysburg on the battlefield. I think it was near Devil's Den, and all you really see it's a family filming trees, and you see what looks like grayish white people like walking up the hill behind them, and it's obvious what it is. But there's no people out there. Like they're like, there's no one out here. It's like it was getting dark, and it's these figures like walking up a hill, and they're behind the trees. And once you see it and you see what it is, it's pretty chilling, because it's like they know there were no reenactors out there. They know there was nobody out there. They weren't even really supposed to be out there. And you have this video. I mean, hey, it could be fake. Oh,
yeah,
maybe. But I've seen thousands of videos.
Yeah, but even when they're saying.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but even what they're saying, they're like, there's trees down there.
Yeah.
He's like, what are they doing down there? And he's like, there can't be. It's just trees, and they're marching in formation through.
It looks like they're walking up a hill behind them, which it's very strange. We'll have to find a clip of that and maybe post that to our Instagram. That it's such a great video.
I recently was looking for it and I couldn't find it on regular YouTube. So I had to get off like Google and I had to go to DuckDuckGo.
Okay, yeah.
And it popped up like the best version of it on YouTube. And I was like, well, I'm on YouTube. Just show me this one. Like, what?
Yeah. Can you think of any others that are on
other dangers?
Other dangers. Can you think of any others that are on the, at least for you, that are on level with that one?
On the level with that one? I kind of got caught up in that one guy who he had that closet and he kept getting that image that was coming through, and as soon as he would open it, it was gone.
Yeah, they debunked that guy.
But time, yeah. But at first, that kind of sold me,
right,
just because you couldn't tell the camera trickery and it looked kind of organic in its way. But more EVP stuff has really got me as far as video clips. It's always kind of, you can be like, oh, you're like, oh, that's ghosting, or that's this and that. Probably the best one I have is my wife's cousin that we'll do an episode about.
Yeah,
but that was kind of one of the better ones I've seen.
It's an amazing video, guys. When we're going to do an episode just on that one, because you'll have to see it, and we'll post it so folks can see it, but it's pretty compelling, and I've sat there and watched it probably 50 to 100 times at this point, and it's pretty incredible. But another one that I was thinking of that was somewhat recent was the whole, I don't think it's real, but that whole Dear David thing from Twitter, from Twitter, the guy who was seeing the ghost of the little boy in his apartment.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun for a while, but then you look at them closer, it's like these are...
That whole chain of
yeah. It was great, and I enjoyed it when it was going on, but like you look at them later on, and it's very obvious that they're digital paintings, but like they are creepy as hell. Like I said, I love the stories.
Even that's cool though. Like if you can like entertain me and like make me scared, and it turns out to not be real, it's like, oh, well, you know what, you served your purpose in a way. Like, we remember me and you were really into Slenderman when it first came out, like when it was first everywhere, and like
everybody was into Slenderman when he first came out.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was like, wait a second, they did such a good job of like falsifying like historical paintings and things to like kind of. And once again, it served its purpose. You know why? Because it freaked me the fuck out. You know?
Hey,
like,
we all had fun with that, right? So we already talked about, places that we want to visit. How about places that you have visited? I mean, were there any great, paranormal-ish places that you have visited that stick out? I mean, obviously there's been a few. We know there's been a few between the two of us. But what are maybe one or two that stick out for you?
The kind of the holy grail for me, and I'm sure, was up there for you, was Eastern State. Just one being in there.
And where is this?
To the things that we experienced, and this is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It is Eastern State Penitentiary in Philly it's a marvel. Just the architecture, the history, the content that is available about it. Like, there's a reason that it's a big talking point, in any of these paranormal shows or even history. Just it's gorgeous in every way. But then the no longer with us Byberry, hospital, Byberry Mental Institution, which that was the name, but it was, I think, the Philadelphia Hospital, I think it was called.
Sure.
It's escaping me the actual name.
It's fine.
But that didn't have any paranormal experiences, but it was one of those places that just being in there puckered the butthole.
I've seen plenty of videos. I never got to visit myself. I mean, we drove past a few times when I was with you guys, but at that point it was already partially demolished and already had like heavy security patrols. But for me, God, there's so many. I'll say Eastern State Penitentiary as well, but we'll not talk more about that because that's actually going to be our first actual episode, which will be coming up after this little introductory episode. But after that, Gettysburg I only visited once. I know this was like the third time we mentioned Gettysburg, but if you ever want to have the feeling of a whole place feeling haunted, go to Gettysburg. Like, you pull in there and like you're just like, yep, there's just a vibe to this place. You can literally feel the history, and so many things have been written and said about Gettysburg that it's not even going to do it justice to just talk about it here on the short form. But Gettysburg, and then recently, this is about 2 years, just about 2 years ago, I visited a place called Marblehead in Massachusetts, and they have one of the oldest burying grounds in the United States there. It's called Old Burial Hill. And if you've seen Hocus Pocus, you've seen it because that's the that's the cemetery that they use. But it's also a setting for a H.P. Lovecraft story. But unbelievable. I think it was incorporated in like 1638. I mean, it's so old, and the tombstones are so impressive looking. It's such an old style of carving. It was just there was definitely a spirit to the place. I can't say I experienced anything, but it was pretty incredible from that kind of standpoint. And then one last little thing is I spent quite a bit of time going into and exploring this place called Marlborough Psychiatric Hospital in New Jersey. A literal town-sized, and a town really, psychiatric facility. This is also going to be another episode in conjunction with Ken's Byberry experiences, but Marlborough was a trip. You think abandoned psychiatric hospital, yet they had it all. And there were many experiences there. Oh,
I bet. But one last place, me and you were together. It was just amazing being there, just because the spirit of it was Fort Mifflin in Philly as well. It was we didn't really have any kind of experience, but it was an experience.
The spirit of the airplanes.
Just once again, Yeah, man. They were present.
Well,
And the bugs,
we
man, the bugs were out of fucking pocket.
we had a little experience. It was with me and your brother and the tour guide and one other dude. I forget who was in there with us, and they were doing. I don't know how you feel about these. EVP, not EVP. The REM pod, I think it's called. He had the thing in there and it was like blinking or whatever, and like had a couple hits, and thought we heard a couple of whispers within this very. Oh yeah, okay. It was interesting. It was very hard to maintain any kind of like trying to get the spirit of this place, because like this place is a quarter mile from Philadelphia International Airport, and the planes fly over it so low you could hit it with a rock, and they're so loud, and so it's just like, oh, that's why there's not a lot of things happening here, because literally every 5 minutes an airplane goes over, which is a shame because the place is historically significant, like very historically significant, and it's just kind of like tucked away in this back corner by like the Navy shipyard.
Yeah, it's definitely gorgeous too, just architecturally and just like the little nooks and crannies that you can go into and see. But yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite places. I was just at.
Right. And to maybe switch gears a little bit, I was thinking, what's your stance on psychic ability, ESP, a couple of wavy lines?
Well, one thing I do want to say, in one of our recent conversations, it's been killing me. I've been dying. When we were talking about Peter James from he was on Sightings, he was on
Hello,
Scariest Place on Earth. Oh,
I'm coming through.
when you said, because I bought in hard, and you did too, and you said, and I quote, and it kills, dude, you killed me when you were like, I thought that guy was a fucking superhero, and you're like, here comes Ghost Man. I'll be at work typing, and I'll just start laughing, and people are like, what the fuck's wrong with you? I'm like, you don't know shit about Ghost Man. Go away.
You're talking about Peter James, psychic Peter James.
Yeah. I think the power was within his white hair and black mustache. I think that gave him some kind of astral presence.
Yep, he was going in there with BD energy for sure.
And I love how he would do like the look up and he'd be like, they're there, like, and he would sell it. So the guy should have got a fucking Oscar, but I'm fascinated with the spiritualist movement of like the 1800s. And it's not because I buy any of it. Like,
no, it's just interesting. It's absolutely interesting.
Yeah.
How many people were into
and like
it?
I'm into like the gizmos and tricks they would kind of use to like, sleight a hand and get one over on people. Cause it was a traveling haunted house is what it was.
Yeah. And they got some very, intelligent, for lack of a better term, people. I mean, Arthur Conan Doyle, the guy who created Sherlock Holmes, the greatest deductive reasoner, in all of literature, was taken by some of these stories. Like he just believed it, hook, line, and sinker. And he was also very good friends with Harry Houdini, and Houdini was, this famous, like debunker. And he would tell him, he's like, look, none of this is real. I will show you what they're doing, and he would still believe it. It was
because what's his name? Was it George Wood? I forget. He was one of like the premier guys who would hold court with like royalty and stuff like that. And he when he died, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle like wrote this glowing like obituary to him, like how he was one of the most genuine people, never charged, doing it all out of the goodness of his heart. But that's kind of the thing. Like if you go and you like read or watch YouTube videos on these people that were doing this kind of stuff, like the Fox sisters, their story about them, like the house that they grew up in, that was kind of the beginning of it. And that was actually kind of some stuff that no one can even really put their finger on, because those girls weren't even at the house. They were away because this stuff was happening. And it was just like their dad there, like, I can't explain this stuff. I don't claim mediumship, but this is what it was. And
right,
like, I wish that house was still around, but it's gone, sadly.
Yeah. The Fox sisters, that could be a whole podcast in itself. Just the, their exploits.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that, both of us have had at least a few experiences that we can, at the very least, label unexplained. In your experience, or I should say, in your experiences, what's one that sticks out for you? I mean, they all stick out, but
all right.
what's I'm not going to say favorite, but what's one that always sticks out for you?
I had a couple that like, and it's not even like childhood. This was like in my early 20s. It was when I first moved out, and it was like shortly after I broke my back. And I was at the apartment, and I was like walking up to my room in the stairwell, and it was dark, but this kind of like veil. It was weird, dude. It was like, imagine just like a black sheet that was kind of almost like stretchy, kind of dropped in front of my face as I was walking up the stairs. I could see the light on my TV in my room, and I kind of like looked, and I was like, I'm seeing stuff. My vision just going, I'm stressed or something. But I actually like kind of like moved to the side to look around it. And then I got really kind of shook, and then I watched it kind of dissipate and fade into my bedroom. And that was like an adult kind of story. I'm living, I'm not living at home anymore. I'm out here, just on my own kind of, and I'm like, all right, now I got to go to sleep in that room.
Yeah.
And then another similar one happened to me in the house I live at now, walking up the stairs again, veil right in front of me. I'm going up the stairs, and it kind of felt like a warning in a weird way. But I still went upstairs, both cases. And those two were big ones, just because it wasn't like a ghost. It wasn't a whisper. It was just this like weird thing that draped in front of me that kind of like just to stop me from going somewhere.
That's interesting. I've heard in some, there is an experience that people have where they've been in a place that's allegedly haunted, and they get the feeling of walking through spider webs.
Yeah, it kind of was like that. I wanted but what's like a stretchy material, like a stretchy kind of
ectoplasm. Sorry.
No, it was there for the taking, but
was it the green or the pink?
No, it was the one they get in the cemeteries that look like just someone smoking in front of a camera. But no, this was just like a black drape, and it kind of like endangled, and then was just like the first time it just like got smaller and went away. And I wish I could blame it on drugs and stuff, but sadly I wasn't on any. But I was just like, what? Like, because I can work around a ghost. Like I can work around hearing something. I can work around. Oh, that was the spirit of Thomas and Jasubi that used to live here. Like I can work around that stuff. But just like a black veil, it's like, is this the Grim Reaper? Like, what is this? Like, what is it telling me here?
Well, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah, and how about you? What was one that you were just like, Well,
I'm going to give a two-part answer to that. The first part answer is because we are already planning on having an episode just on this. There's the Henry Street house. Multiple family members of mine have had experiences at this house, and these are like horror movie style experiences where you're like, if someone were to tell you these stories, which we are going to, and I'm going to try to have family members on here to tell them as well, you would be like, no way that happened. That sounds like a movie. And it's like, yeah, actually, these things did happen to people who aren't under the influence of anything, have no history of mental illness, nothing, and all telling the same kind of stuff. And I want to save this for when we eventually get to it.
Yep.
But the second that always sticks out to me now is legs at your mom's house. And I'll tell you why, for two reasons. One, I had heard for like a couple months before, it was the first time I ever stayed over at the house. And you guys have been talking about it for months. Oh, legs. So we see legs every once in a while. And it was like a no big thing. I'm like, all right, these guys, what the fuck they're talking about. So it's fucking asking for Taylor ham instead of pork roll. I don't know. So I slept on the couch that night, and so the experience was, you guys said that every once in a while you would see just a pair of legs walking up the stairs. So before you guys told me this, I was like, what, like mannequin legs? I was imagining like mannequin legs going up the stairs. I'm like, these guys are drinking Drano. So I'm laying on the couch. It's like middle of the night. I roll over, and a pair of gray semi-translucent legs goes up the stairs, and that was it.
And the rest of your night was fun.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, I can say, did I just wake up? Yes, I did. Now, people will say to me, oh, well, just waking up, when you're just waking up, your brain can do this, 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 and this. Fine. But I saw that, and yeah, you could also say, oh, well, their stories colored your experience. You were probably dreaming and you saw it. Maybe. But I've never experienced anything like that before, where I woke up and saw something like that, and it was just a gray, wispy pair of legs that walked up the stairs real quick. It lasted 2 seconds maybe, and I really kind of, like, even years later, treasure that, because it's like, that was a repeatable experience. I saw it. You guys saw it. You guys told me about it, and I eventually did see it myself.
Well, yeah, and the one funny thing, I actually, the only time that I think I may have, I had like a crazy high fever, and I was like just so sick, and I like looked and I thought I did, but I didn't. I don't have a confirmable site. Everyone else, like my cousin, both my brothers, my mom, my stepdad, I'm the only one that just never like can I can't be like, yes, I saw them, and I won't, and I won't tell you I did. But everyone that has seen them has, I believe them 100%, because I saw their faces after they saw them. And when they recanted the story, like, I know my family, we've been through some shit, and I know when they're telling me something fucking scary.
Yeah.
And then I can attribute that to when they were doing the renovating in the first time you slept over, they were rebuilding all those new houses right out back of our house.
And your mom was redoing the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah,
at the same time,
and she was like that was right after she redid the whole house. So, and yeah, that all used to be farmland. It was like, farmhouses, horse stables, and my best, like I told her recently, my best idea is that was just someone going up to a hayloft, or just like the old kind of ladder just that goes above the stairs. It takes those sharper angles like a ladder, or a makeshift stair, case that's going up to a loft.
Yeah, I mean, that could definitely go into the category of a residual haunting, which is, the idea of something being played back. There's no intelligence to it. It's just some kind of energy imprinted on, the area that you're at. It's just something that has been repeated so many times that, it just repeats itself. Something very similar happened at my grandmother's house that she used to live in. Everyone who ever went there heard it at least once. You'd be sitting there. Nobody would be in the kitchen, and you would hear someone walk through the kitchen. And it would just happen. Other things happen there, but that one was crazy repeatable, because, like, it was so it just happened so often that you just kind of even dismissed it. You're like, oh, there's that sound again. Yeah. And you weren't even like, because at one point I remember it was like, maybe that's next door. Like, what is that? But no, because you could go and we would experiment. I'm like, my brother would be there. Like, John, go walk through the kitchen. He'd walk through. Okay, that's a person walking through the kitchen. Then we go sit down for a while, kind of forget about it. We'd be sitting in like the outer living room area, and you can see into the kitchen from where we were sitting, and you would hear it, and we were just like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no.
And it used to freak us out. And another thing attached to that gave it a little more, or at least some more credibility, my grandmother's dog would never go through the kitchen. Refused. If you put, and it was one of those I don't know what you would call it, an embedded kitchen, where like there's a hallway on either side. You can either go through the kitchen to get to a hallway, or you can walk all the way around. You could put food in the hallway, and the dog could get to it within 5 feet, or it could walk all the way around like a good 25, 30 feet. Every single time it would go around. You could not make the dog walk through there. If you picked the dog up to bring it into the kitchen, it would flip out. Yeah, so you could never get the dog to go into the kitchen. And it was just another thing that lended some credibility to the whole thing. And, Same kind of thing. This repeated thing that they call residual haunting is, somehow I think there is something to that. I can believe that. I mean, do we have the full explanation? No, but I can definitely believe that there's something to that some kind of energy can be imprinted on an area because things have been repeated so many times.
Yeah, it's definitely a little more easy to sink your teeth into something like that as opposed to like an intelligent haunting or, a demon manifestation, like that kind of stuff. Like,
God,
most of that's, religious based, and, all kinds of different faiths have their, demonic attackers.
Anyone coming to any kind of haunted or paranormal kind of activity is going to bring their baggage to it. So if you're coming to it and you're a religious person, you're going to see it through that lens, of course.
Yeah. And I mean, I try not to throw any of that into it because it adds that kind of bias,
100%.
I like the idea of just observing something that will never have an answer to, like, it's like, wow, I experienced something that a lot of people never will get the chance to. Maybe they're blind to it, and you've said it a bunch of times. Maybe just some people can't have it, that experience.
No, I think that there is something to that. I think there's some people who have better antenna or better, receptors, whatever you want to call it. They can just somehow experience it more or just attuned to it. And just some people aren't, and
I do believe that certain experiences can, give that, I don't want to say like ability or gift, but like, I do believe that something can happen that kind of can rewire something in your brain, because, the chemistry in your brain, every 25 years or something, it changes, and it's, it just could be something chemical in your brain that just lifts a veil or something, who knows? That,
or just, something happens and it just changes your perspective. I mean, how often do people's, perspectives change? It's just something happens and, I'll never view that the same way again. And that could just be it.
Yeah. And sometimes, it doesn't happen enough. Some people just can't get their head out of that space. And just like normal life or normal experiences, they won't have them because they're just set. They're dead set in that mind frame,
Well, and I think it's the type of experience too. Some people are just closed to certain type of experiences, and I think that's that's something that we're gonna tackle, or at least get into on the show. Try to, but we're talking a lot heavy on ghost stuff here because that's going to be the main focus. But we also want to move into a few other things like cryptozoology, for example. That's something that we're both interested in.
Yeah, and it's funny that there's a lot of people that are like solely believe in one and don't believe in the other. Like,
oh, I could see that, because if you're thinking that cryptozoology are just undiscovered animals, which is just what that means, I could see that, sure. But then there's people who are like, oh, well, Bigfoot's actually an alien and he's a multi-dimensional creature, and that's why you can't see him, because he gets taken back up into the UFO. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And in a way, those are kind of some of my favorite ones, Like,
oh, absolutely.
If someone's got a multi-dimensional, gorilla beast monster that they're like, oh man, that's a good time. I'm in for that story.
Right. I don't know if that's hilarious or terrifying or both.
It is both. It is both. Like, even if you're getting attacked by that, you'll be scared as shit. It disappears, goes to the spaceship. 2 minutes later, you're like, yo, did you fucking see that thing?
Right.
It just
did Bigfoot just get abducted by aliens? Like,
Bigfoot. No, my God, that's the best visual. Just Bigfoot's coming after you, and it's your and then.
Yep. He gets hit Travis Walton Fire in the Sky style.
They need
just
to make
put Bigfoot in that situation from Fire in the Sky where he's like terrified, he's like all stuck to the thing.
He gets out.
Bigfoot.
He gets out. He's like floating around.
Right.
And he's like,
right, but it's the same Bigfoot from those commercials. Messing with Sasquatch.
Someone get on it. Get on it, Jack Links.
Seriously, I want to see that.
Get us a web series, man. Whew.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think that was, as far as cryptids go, that's where everyone, comes to it, is those, you always hear those old Bigfoot stories, or, everyone's seen the video, the famous Patterson Gimlin film, which has both been discredited by very credible people and then lauded by very credible people to this day.
Yeah.
And it's pretty, I mean, some days I look at that video and I'm like, oh my God, that's so fake. And then some days I look at it, I'm like, ooh, I think that's real.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like, it's a mind state sometimes. Like It's just like some days you're in the mood for some music, some days you're not,
Sure. And I want it to be real so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my bias for sure.
Yeah. And it sucks when you get mad at yourself for seeing something that you're like, and you already have like a whole bunch of things that you're like, all right, here's where I'm going to lay out to myself to discredit it. But then you're like, why am I like this? Like, but you gotta be if
you start by watching a video of Bigfoot, and by the end you're in the middle of like an existential crisis. Why am I like this?
You're in the kitchen with just like the stove light on, lean over the counter, and your wife comes in. You're just like, Bigfoot. It's not real,
Yep. Sitting over a bare bulb eating some cold SpaghettiOs.
Not a bad time, if you ask me. But UFOs too, though. The Bigfoot abductors.
That's where they all went. That's why we don't see them.
Yeah,
they got them all.
They take them back and they experiment, and then you never see the bodies because they take them wherever they go. But I've had a couple little weird ones. Just things in the skies that were not fucking planes, but or helicopters or anything that the way they moved, and I saw them, and I'm not going to be like aliens were piloting that thing. What I'm going to say is it was not a drone. It wasn't anything readily explainable to me. And
that's the crazy thing about UFOs, because literally everything in the sky that's flying is a UFO, because that might be a plane, but beyond that I can't identify it.
Yeah. Well, true to its name, that's the easiest thing. But the government or the Pentagon recently saying, there are aircrafts that aren't.
Out of all of this stuff, and I call it stuff, we're doing a whole podcast about it, but that's the one where I get the closest to. It's like, are aliens real? Yeah, probably. I mean, are they here? I don't know. Do I think so? Probably not. But do I think they're out there somewhere? Yeah, I do. That's the one where I'll say, yeah, I believe that. I think they're out there somewhere. Have they made contact? Are they shape-shifting reptiles that are, influencing elections? I don't think so.
They're controlling your government, bro. They're there.
They are the government at this point.
Yeah. Well,
get my uncle on here and he'll talk about it for an hour and a half. Don't worry, folks. I will never subject you to that.
Yeah, good, because we already got me here, and I'm going to go into it for an hour right now. But no.
However, along with the other, this has a cross section of both. I mean, and obviously we're going to do an episode on this as well. The Mothman. That's one of my favorite cases of all time, because I think that's the case that coined the term high strangeness, where you have all these things going on.
And just everything surrounding that whole case, and everything that happened at Point Pleasant, like
the UFO sightings, the Silver Bridge collapsing, Indrid Cold, the Men in Black,
and that
just
the Indrid Cold thing,
the curse of Cornstalk, like all of it is just it's so fascinating to me.
And the Native American thing, dude,
Cornstalk.
That's the most kind of potent kind of stuff that I think is out there, because like these were people that were in tune with nature, man. Their beliefs had them, just close understanding with themselves, close understanding of what's around them, and how to thrive without all the bullshit, that we have on a regular basis. And
like podcasts.
Yeah. That would be a great podcast, though. That would be the Native American Burial Ground podcast.
Oof, God, we would get one episode in and then canceled, and
We-
rightfully so.
We would cancel ourselves.
We would. We'd like, you know what, guys, we're awful.
But the area that I grew up in around in Ben Salem and the Neshaminy, that whole area, man, there's lots of that, man. There's lots of, like, the Ben Salem itself is as old as the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Like, the establishment of it, Ben's Playground means Ben Salem means Ben's Playground, and it was gifted to Ben Franklin from William Penn. He never was fucking there, you know.
He wasn't there. He didn't keep like hookers there. I mean,
No,
Ben Franklin was.
Well, he actually did where the kite flew. They actually, it's apparently behind a 7-Eleven off of like one of the roads by like the municipal building. There's like a placard there and everything.
Behind a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, well,
Gotta love Philly.
yeah, well, it's right outside of Philly because they thought it was where the Franklin Mills Mall was. That's why they shaped it like a lightning bolt. And then it turns out it was like a mile down the road behind, you know, like Park Ave in between like the 7-Eleven. It's like, all right, man. But that's cool for me. I'm like, I love that place, man. I love that area. So
Sure. Well, yeah, no, I where I live too is, I'm in central New Jersey, which is a place.
Just for the non-believers out there.
Non-believers, I if you're listening and you're from around this area, you know, people say there's no central New Jersey. No, don't know what I'm talking about. It's fine. We'll probably cut this anyway.
No chance, pal.
It's staying in.
Yeah.
Hashtag it's staying in.
We're blowing minds with this episode.
Yep. Unsubscribe. But yeah. So, I mean, I think they've gotten an idea of what we're going to go for with this rambling, and absolutely, folks, this rambling will continue. This is what you signed up for. We're going to talk about this stuff in a very, very laid back approach, with no scientific information to back up our claims, other than what I've gotten from cursory internet research. We're just here to have a good time.
Yeah, and hey, we're going to talk about it. We're going to do some deep dives into a lot of different topics, a lot of different, but historical hauntings is going to be, you know, our main baby here. But yeah, we branch out into experiences we've had, and we want to hear yours too.
Right. So, for example, our first episode coming up, I mean, this is just an introductory episode, but our first actual episode is going to focus on a topic that we just touched on before, which is Eastern State Penitentiary, which we've got some great stuff behind that. And then we're going to have episodes that's going to be just listener submissions. You know, we're going to have, which we have quite a few really good ones so far, and then a few that we're going to have to bring people on just so they can tell their story, because we've gotten some really good ones. But that's really going to be the flow of it. We're going to have some historically, based haunting type things where we focus on a location. And then other weeks we'll have a lot of great stories that, you know, folks have submitted themselves.
And yeah, and that's kind of what makes this so great, for us, or makes it such a big thing is when you get an actual credible paranormal experience from someone, it kind of changes the game when you're talking to someone. If they're like, no, there are people there, this happened, you know, it's not just someone like the oven turned on, you know, when like someone's like, no, 3 of us saw this person there, or we passed the ball around, it stopped and it cut catty corner. Like those really good personal corroborated stories that have evidence with them. It's just,
there's something to it. And I think if you're listening to this and you're interested in this kind of stuff, you'll respond to what we're talking about. There's that X factor that, like, okay, there's something to this.
And we'll do our best to try to extract that from personal stories, from historical stories, and we hope you guys want to listen more. And believe us, we got plenty of goods in the bag.
Absolutely.
So thank you for listening to this episode, and we got plenty more coming your way. For Other Dangerous Podcasts, I'm Ken,
and I'm Jay,
and have a spooky evening.
Ooh.
Thank you for listening to Other Dangerous Podcast. Do you have a paranormal story? You can submit it to us at otherdangerouspodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to have a short discussion about the paranormal, you can comment on Other Dangerous Podcast on Instagram. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to discuss the other dangers.